Hey folks, welcome back to the channel. Well, it's October, and I'm going to be doing nothing but horror films for this month. In particular, I'm going to focus on anthology horror films. And the first one we're going to be talking about is Tales from the Darkside, the movie. If you grew up in the 80s and 90s, you absolutely remember Tales from the Darkside, the TV show.
Place that is just as real, but not as brightly lit. A dark side.
Along with another show like Monsters, I used to love watching this show every week. And when the movie came out in 1990, I couldn't wait to see it. As an anthology film, of course, it has several different writers and story inspirations, from Stephen King to George Romero and Arthur Conan Doyle. The movie has that familiar anthology film setup where there's a wraparound story and three main stories, all of which are interesting in their own right. And honestly, before I even really get into this film, I have to say, this movie is much better than it has any right to be. My personal favorite anthology film is the original Creepshow, but Tales from the Darkside, the movie, is a very close second. This movie, to this day, is still very good. I'm going to start with the wraparound story and how it ties into the rest of the film. This segment stars Deborah Harry. You remember her from Blondie. The film starts with her driving home from the store in a suburban neighborhood. She looks like an average, ordinary person. She gets home and then you realize she's kidnapped a kid and she has him locked up in a cellar in her kitchen. And she's trying to feed him cookies to get them all fattened up so she can eat them for a dinner party she's having later. And she's going about her business just kind of all matter of fact, like this is just normal everyday stuff. The kid, of course, realizing that he's going to be eaten, doesn't want to be, and he manages to convince Deborah Harry's character of Betty to let him read some stories from the book that she left him. She has a pretty strict time on when she needs to eviscerate this kid to have him prepared for the dinner party that evening. So she gives him a chance to read her a story. And that's where the first segment of the film actually begins. It's titled Lot 249.
Hey, be careful with that.
His name's Bellingham, and he collects antiques. Well, one day, Bellingham got a very special delivery.
It's an adaptation of an Arthur Conan Doyle story written by Michael McDowell. The segment stars Steve Buscemi, Julianne Moore, and Christian Slater. Lot 249 is kind of a mixed bag when it comes to the actual stories in this film. It's not a bad segment at all. Don't get me wrong, I actually really enjoy this segment for a few reasons. Mostly Steve Buscemi and Christian Slater. They're really great in this segment. The story itself is just pretty simple. It's got a little twist ending, but the characters in the story just are much more interesting than the actual mummy itself. So let me get into the story real quick. So what's the plot of Lot 249? Well, Steve Buscemi's character is falsely accused of stealing an artifact on a college campus. To get his revenge, he resurrects an ancient mummy and commands it to kill the people responsible for his setup. As it turns out, the person most responsible for the false accusations is the sister of his best friend. Using an ancient scroll, he resurrects the mummy and has it perform murders in the same manner that it was mummified thousands of years ago, which is actually a pretty unique way to perform these kills in this segment. The mummy scrapes the brains out of one guy and he stuffs flowers in his friend's sister. And it's pretty cool. It's pretty well set up in this segment. And I always like setups and payoffs. But Andy, his best friend, finds out what Bellingham is doing, and he's able to convince Bellingham to call off what he's doing, leave the school, and never come back. Because by this point, Bellingham's already killed his sister and his friend. But of course, the police aren't going to believe any of that. So he basically ties up Bellingham and threatens to burn his nuts off if he doesn't do what he asks. Well, Bellingham agrees, but in a little twist ending, Bellingham had the original scroll with him the entire time, and he resurrects Andy's sister and her boyfriend to come back and kill Andy. Like I said, it's nothing crazy. The segment's okay. It's not the best in the movie, but it's definitely pretty good. For whatever reason, I really enjoy watching it, even though it's the one I enjoy the least in the film. The next segment is The Cat from Hell, which is a Stephen King story that was adapted by George Romero. I really enjoy this segment of the film. Even though it has probably the fewest characters, it's just really fun. It stars William Hickey as Drogon, David Johansen as Halston, and Mark Margolis in a supporting role. Drogon's a rich and frail old man in a wheelchair. He hires a professional hitman, Halston, and offers a big sum to kill a black cat he believes is responsible for the earlier deaths in his household. Drogon explains that his company killed thousands of cats in drug tests, and now a cat seems to be enacting supernatural revenge. The hitman takes the job, planning to pocket the money, but the cat proves to be far more deadly and supernatural than expected. The cat ultimately dispatches the hitman in a grotesque way, then triggers Drogon's fatal reaction. What I like about this segment is that it's pretty simple. A hitman versus a cat. And the cat keeps getting the upper hand. And it's humorous while also being pretty serious and I wouldn't call it scary. But you wonder, what kind of creative ways is this cat going to cause havoc? And eventually, in a pretty honestly silly effect, the cat jumps into the hitman's mouth and goes down his throat and into his chest. And when Drogon comes back the next day, he sees the cat come out of the hitman and it causes him to have a heart attack and he dies. The effect of the cat going to the hitman's mouth, it does look kind of dumb. I'm not even going to argue with that. But rewatching this film after so many years, I was talking about Lot 249 before, and I honestly forgot how good this particular segment of the film is. And when I watched it this time, I realized, I actually like this segment more than Lot 249. Now, keep in mind, between all these segments, the wraparound story is still going on. So Debbie Harry is telling the kid, okay, no more stories, I gotta get you cooked. And the kid basically says, hey, wait, I got one more I wanna tell you, it's a love story. So she says, okay, go ahead. Well, that leads us to the final segment, which is the lover's vow. And this is easily the best segment of this film. Not to put down the other two, but this was legitimately great. This segment was written by Michael McDowell. It stars James Remar, Ray Don Chong, and Robert Klein. James Remar plays Preston. He's a struggling artist. And one night he's drunk and leaving a bar, and he witnesses a gargoyle attack and kill his friend. The creature spares Preston on the condition he never reveal what he's seen.
No, please don't.
Your life in exchange for a promise.
You got it.
He's physically marked with a big scratch on his chest and sworn to silence. Right after that incident, he meets Carola, a mysterious woman, and almost immediately his life improves. He starts selling his art, he becomes successful, and he and Carola have 2 children. 10 years later, he ends up breaking his vow and tells Carola about the gargoyle. And Carola is revealed to be the gargoyle in human form. And because he broke his promise, she must return to her monster form. The children also transform. I really love this segment because there's really only one death in this entire segment, not counting Preston at the end. It doesn't really need a lot of killing and deaths to make this really effective. I remember the first time I watched this segment back in 1990, and I remember being so surprised that his wife was the gargoyle. I thought that when he revealed the promise that the gargoyle would just kind of come out of nowhere, kill him and his family, not that his wife was the gargoyle herself. The transformation sequence is pretty nasty. For 1990, it's pretty good though. All the acting in the segment is really good. And you really got to see it. I can describe it. I just kind of spoiled the ending for you. But you really need to see it because it's one of those segments that even if you know what's going to happen, it's still really good. And that leads us to the end of the wraparound segment, where the kid eventually tricks Debbie Harry's character, and he's able to escape and push her into the oven that she was going to cook him in. And that's pretty much where the movie ends. So that's Tales from the Darkside, the movie. It's a great watch. As of right now, it's not available for free on streaming, but try to look for it. It may show up in the future. Otherwise, try to watch this film any way you can, especially if you like watching a good horror film during the month of October. And if you like this video, hit the like button, share, subscribe if you haven't already, and I'll be back real soon.